Let's talk about stories, the ones that shape who we are. For too long, Africa's stories were ignored or only valued when discovered by outsiders. In 1989, a group of African writers gathered in Accra, Ghana, and said, "Enough." They founded the Pan-African Writers Association, PAWA, to unite the continent's voices. The African literary scene was fragmented, disconnected. PAWA aimed to change that. Their vision, a blueprint for unity, from Lagos to Cape Town, Timbuktu to the Serengeti. Our stories, in all their diversity, are the foundation of our identity. PAWA became the home for every African storyteller who'd ever been told their voice was too small. It was a radical act, claiming the right to tell our own stories in our own languages on our own terms. The founding of PAWA was a promise. Our stories matter, our voices are united, and we are just getting started. This was about more than literature. It was about reclaiming the narrative of a continent. The air in Accra was electric with possibility. Writers, poets, and playwrights gathered, not just to talk, but to build. They envisioned a future where every African child could see themselves as the hero of their own story. PAWA was born as a sanctuary, a megaphone, and a movement, and with that, Africa's literary uprising began. Every revolution has its heroes, and PAWA's founders were literary legends. Chinua Achebe gave us the courage to challenge colonial narratives. Atukwe Okai, Ghana's poet and PAWA's first Secretary General, turned vision into action. Wole Soyinka brought moral force and a fierce defense of human rights. Women like Ama Ata Aidu ensured African women's voices were central to the movement. Ngugi wa Thiong'o's advocacy for decolonizing African literature and promoting indigenous languages laid the ideological foundation for the creation of PAWA. His Pan-African vision and literary activism deeply influenced the association's mission to unify and empower African writers. Nadine Gordimer, a South African anti-apartheid writer and Nobel laureate, influenced the creation of PAWA through her fearless literary activism and commitment to social justice. Her international stature and bold critique of oppressive regimes inspired African writers to see literature as a liberation tool and unite under a continental body like PAWA. These founders and pioneers knew true freedom means telling our own stories, and they passed that torch to us. PAWA's mission is bold: to celebrate Africa's literature in every language and defend the freedom to write. It's about making sure a poem in Gikuyu is as valued as a novel in English. PAWA stands up for writers facing censorship or danger. If you come for one, you come for all. The oral tradition, griots, storytellers, performance poetry, is honored and preserved. PAWA fights for cultural sovereignty, building our own publishing houses, prizes, and networks. We're not just a chapter in world history. We're a library, opening our doors on our own terms. Our stories, written and spoken, are the heartbeat of our identity. PAWA is here to keep that heartbeat strong. How do you unite a continent as vast as Africa? PAWA's answer: think local, act continental. With headquarters in Accra, PAWA branches out through 5 regional arms: North, South, East, West, and Central Africa, each with its own projects and leadership. This structure lets PAWA respond to local needs, support regional festivals, and foster collaboration. It's a living network, not a top-down system, and it doesn't stop at Africa's shores. The 6th arm, WAFORD, connects the African diaspora worldwide. This model lets a poet in Mogadishu find solidarity with a novelist in Maputo. It's how we share, translate, and stand together. PAWA's blueprint turns a continental dream into reality. What about African writers abroad? Enter WAFORD, the Writers of the African Diaspora Foundation. WAFORD is PAWA's bridge to the global African family, connecting writers in London, Toronto, Atlanta, São Paulo, and beyond. It's a home for diaspora writers, offering community, mentorship, and publishing opportunities. WAFORD celebrates every genre and every story, because African identity is global. Whether you're a first-generation immigrant or your ancestors left centuries ago, WAFORD is your literary home. It's about making sure diaspora voices are woven into the Pan-African conversation. By bringing everyone together, Power and WAFORD make the literary family whole. Every African story everywhere has a place to shine. The legacy is powerful, but the work isn't done. African writers still face censorship, limited access, and the risk of cultural amnesia. Power and WAFORD are more vital than ever. Our collective voice, our shield, our platform. Join the movement. Find your regional power, connect with WAFORD, and don't write in isolation. Share your work, mentor others, organize readings, contribute to Africa's great library. The future of African literature is ours to build together. Your story matters. Every word is an act of reclamation. You stand on the shoulders of giants and beside thousands of writers worldwide. Pick up your pen, tell your story, join us, let's make history. Please take some time to read the accompanying blog to understand what Power and WAFORD truly stand for and how you can position yourself as an African writer with the gift to support growth and change. You're welcome. How writers can quiet inner noise and find clarity through environment, perspective, and spirit. Writers write to solve problems, disrupt stagnation, and help shape growth. A single phrase can break an old way of thinking. A well-crafted paragraph can breathe fresh life into tired conversations. Our words carry the power to influence, heal, and challenge. But they only carry that power when they are born from a mind and spirit at peace. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and constant demand, the challenge for writers is not only finding time to write, but finding the inner stillness to listen to our conscience, to our creativity, and sometimes to something greater than ourselves. The following are 6 ways to create an environment, both external and internal, where your words can thrive. 1. Anchor your writing with a ritual. Rituals are not about superstition, they are about rhythm. They signal to your mind and body that it is time to write. This could be as simple as lighting a candle, taking a few deep breaths, making a specific cup of tea, or putting on instrumental music you reserve only for writing sessions. Over time, your brain begins to associate this ritual with focus and flow. On a deeper level, rituals help align your thoughts and emotions, creating a settled inner atmosphere where your creativity can unfold naturally. 2. Invite awe into your workspace. Awe is that sacred pause when you are reminded that the world is bigger than your deadlines or doubts. It might come through watching the ocean, standing before a piece of art, or hearing a single line of poetry that stops you in your tracks. Psychologists describe awe as a self-transcendent emotion. It shifts your focus from yourself to something greater. Spiritually speaking, awe can help you rise above mental clutter and reconnect with a sense of meaning and purpose. Fill your writing space with objects that evoke this feeling. A framed quote, a painting that stirs something deep, or even a window view that greets you with sunrise. Or opens the door for bigger, braver words. 3. Let nature breathe into your words. Nature is not simply a backdrop. It is a quiet collaborator in our creative process. A soft breeze, the steady shade of a tree, the scent of fresh earth. These elements seem small, but they can slow racing thoughts and open mental space for story and reflection. Scientific studies show that exposure to green spaces reduces rumination, the repetitive mental loops that drain creativity. For writers, that means fewer hours wrestling with self-doubt and more time in creative flow. If you cannot work in a forest or garden, bring nature to you. A vase of flowers, the sound of rain, a photograph of a quiet river. Even a single living plant can remind you that growth comes in quiet, steady ways. 4. Change the scene when the mind feels heavy. Sometimes, the weight of thoughts is tied to the chair you're sitting in or the walls you've been staring at. Shifting location, even briefly, can lift that weight. Write in a cafe where life hums in the background. Take your journal to a park bench or work by a sunny window you've never used before. These small changes reset your senses and can break the cycle of mental stagnation. You return to the page with fresh angles, new language, and a revived sense of possibility. 5. Declutter your space. Free your mind. Chaos in your environment competes for your attention. A desk buried under papers, coffee cups, and half-finished tasks mirrors the confusion in the mind. Decluttering is more than cleaning. It is a conscious act of creating room for thought, focus, and inspiration. Order is comforting. It reassures the mind that there is space to breathe and freedom to think. Clearing the clutter can be a small but powerful way to honor your creative work and give it the respect it deserves. 6. Guard the gate of your thoughts. Christian perspective. The inner voice is not always your ally. Sometimes it speaks truth and encouragement when it's the conscience, but other times it becomes an unwelcome guest, accusing, distracting, or oppressing. In Christian understanding, this is temptation, a force that seeks to pull the heart of the soul away from its calling, to distort inspiration, and to plant seeds of discouragement. As writers, our work flows from both the conscious and unconscious mind, what Scripture might describe as the thoughts and intents of the heart. Guarding this inner space is essential. Prayer, Scripture, meditation, and spiritual awareness are not only personal disciplines, they are creative safeguards. A quiet soul is fertile ground for meaningful words. As we in WAFORD continue to shape and share African and diasporic stories, our words must come from a place of clarity and strength. We are not just documenting life, we are interpreting it, challenging it, and reimagining it for future generations. Creating a calm mind and nurturing our creative soul is not a luxury. It is the foundation of our craft. When we learn to manage our inner world, we write not just with skill, but with depth, conviction, and a voice that carries across borders and time.
For coming. We're still missing one panelist. And I've been trying to get hold of him. Let me see. Perfect. We have good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. So we have an emergency situation. Honorable Rusimbi will be joining later. He has a family emergency and will be joining a few minutes later, but we will start immediately so we don't keep the normal topic of African time. We were already like 30 minutes behind. We just wanted more people to join so we could get on. So we have all the panelists pinned up, and Before we start, I would just like to give a topic. I would just like to say a few lines on why we have such a topic, because we have trouble getting Africans to read, or the majority of Africans do not typically sit in their common room and philosophize on book topics or growth, things around growth. So we have a difficult time creating networks of reading people who really can form the change. So the few people who try to do it, they always meet some big walls. And we have here some real giants from different generations. So we have some honorable people around. I'll be introducing them one by one. And would like to hear from them. It will be an intensive ride from beginning to end, and we will be dealing with seven main topics that should really get everybody thinking and really try to understand. We'll have topics like the whole identity as an African writer. We'll be talking about censorship. We'll be talking about expressions and the taboos we harbor. We'll be talking about the reading culture and the typical mindset of an African, and the publishing, cataloging of books and the importance, not really just about marketing of books. And we will talk about mentorship, networking, and exposure in general, the philosophical side and spiritual or intellectual depth of writing. And finally, we'll talk about our future prospects of writing and what we really want to leave on the mat. So, I don't know if we have Christians in here, but we would always like to crown such meetings with a word of prayer. So I will be handing over the mic to Dr. Bill so he can open before I introduce the panelists. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ango, our esteemed coordinator of WAFORD. It is really a delight for me to sit on a panel like this with distinguished panelists like Professor Joyce Ashutantan, Ms. Renald Jones, Rumbi Chen, and the Secretary General of WAFORD, the Honorable Dr. Wale Okediran. I know Dr. Rusumbi, as you said, is having some emergency. I am thankful, first of all, because it is not every day that you get writers, big name in writing, female or male, coming together to help address topics of concerns as you have. And from the very start, when I was elected president of the Pan-African Writers Association, I think I had pledged that conversations like this would be very, very necessary within the Pan-African movement, and even pledged to see that we advocate the institutionalization of translation of our literature into our indigenous languages and several other world languages. I am thankful to the panelists. I want to thank those in attendance. I see a good number of respected names. I will not call because they are all too many. I just want to thank you very much. And as the coordinator said, events like this, it is always good to invoke the Almighty, no matter how we conceive him to be, whether we're invoking him from the Christian perspective, Muslim, or our African traditional perspective. The truth about it is that we are all honoring the one true God who is the creator of the universe. So nobody should take offense when we start our meetings or events with a word of prayer. I will certainly hand over to the Right Reverend so that she might, bless us with that word of prayer, and then start. Thank you all again. And the show is open. Thanks.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Please let's just say a word of prayer and then we could start off. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, we bless your name. Father, we thank you for coming together. We know not all your children in here today are Christians. Lord, we embrace them. We thank you for agreement, for unity, and we pray that by the time we leave this place, we will live in honor and your peace. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll start right away by introducing our Honorable Professor Joyce Ashun Tantan, a distinguished professor and our chair of the editorial board at WAFORD. I'll just let her talk about herself for some few minutes and just tell us, yeah, anything she would like us to know about her so we don't go overboard by doing it for her.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Prof, for coming.
Thank you. That's a tall order. What do I say? What do I leave out? Well, I am a full professor of literature at the University of Hartford. I am known as a poet, but I must confess that I consider myself a storyteller. I am just out there as a poet because I am lazy. I haven't put in the time to produce a novel. But if you comb my archives, you'll see short stories. And through my page on Facebook, I am a storyteller. And what else can I say? With regards to the topic, I am waiting to hear what the others have to say. But I am reminded of something Achebe said. I can't remember now what essay, but he said one of the sad realities of colonialism was that agency passed from elders to children because of literacy. So children started speaking for the community because they were the ones who were educated. And as such, a lot of wisdom was lost. So you can, each time I think about that, it is, it's really frightening. You can imagine what happened at that time when suddenly the elders can't talk because they don't speak the white man's language. They don't speak the Western language. So, and with all the translations and stuff, and they lost agency. And the children became the chiefs, became the leaders. And so a lot was lost. That is how I see the period where we are right now, where influencers have taken over the voice. People have the megaphone without the readiness. So what to do? Some of us are trying to get to that space, but that is a challenge. And I think that's one of the things we are facing now, that everybody can get that megaphone. Everybody can become quote unquote a writer. And you have people who have millions of people reading them. And when you put out something that you think is viable, you don't have millions because that's not what they want to see. So I leave it there. But
Thank you so much, Professor Joyce. I must tell you, I'm so honored to be here with you. I can tell you something that happened to me at the beginning of this week. Somebody literally gave me petrol money for having you on this panel. I don't even know if that person is on this panel yet. Maybe he's going to come later. He just asked me for my Zelle and actually Zelled me money for putting this together.
thanks for telling me. I'll be giving you my Zelle too so that you can send some.
I know. I had to call Professor Bill immediately and say, look at what is happening to me. This panel is actually loading my account already.
I'm glad.
Thank you so much for coming. And now I'll be moving over to Rumbi Chen. Okay, no, before I go, I'll say the continent is really represented here, and Professor Joyce is symbolically representing the center of Africa. And now I'll be moving to the southern part of Africa. That's what power is the constitution of power. And in WAFORD, we have people of all these regions and then the diaspora. So Rumbi Chen is going to represent the southern part, and we are honored to have you here, Rumbi, of the young generation.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. Professor Bill always says, on the shoulders of giants upon where we stand, and I'm here. I'm really pleased to be here among these giants on the panel and also the giants in the audience. I'm Rumbi Chen, short for Rumbi Zai Chennai, and I'm a Zimbabwean. I'm a writer. I do poetry and all other sorts of random awesomeness. I've often heard it said that if you want to hide something from an African, put it in writing. And oftentimes that's true and it's said, but we do have writers in Africa, we have readers, we have people who still like to read, but those numbers are being eroded by things we all know today, and we know there's a purpose why it's being done that way, and we hope that through these conversations and through these institutions like WAFORD in Power, we see that narrative changing. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for coming. Now we'll move over to Rina, our diaspora princess. One other new generation. This is the younger generation, and this is Rina Jones, a newsletter coordinator and our ambassador in the Leadership Council. So, Rina, over to you.
What's new? Every moment is new for me. And in my era of focusing on tiny moments, so it's a call to being present. Because when you're present, you can enter portals that lead you to the truth of who you really are. So that's where I am. Every moment means something for me. Every moment I value. So hi, everybody. I'm Raina Linares Jones. I am a journalist and public health communicator. My lens is one of truth telling, truth seeking, and I'm also a systems thinker. So with my background in public health communications, my lens is looking at ways to motivate people to take proactive action to improve their health behaviors, and thus influence better health outcomes for individuals and populations. So I am working on a newsletter. It's a weekly newsletter that I started earlier this year. The name of it is called Wonder More. And for some of you who caught the recordings in the beginning, those videos really speak to the power that we have as writers when we are in tune with our authentic selves. I believe that it is through authenticity that we are truly liberated. So my newsletter comes out every week. I focus on health, healing, and imagination. Actually, radical imagination, because I believe that's what we need right now to get us out of this loop of history, like repeating itself. We need to imagine new worlds so that we can create new changes. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. I'm going to approach it from a lens of authenticity, inner freedom, and non-conformity.
Great. Thank you so much, Rina. Yes, now we are moving on to the one of the most honorable guests on our list here on the panel. This is Honorable Dr. Wale Okediran, representing us from Ghana and Nigeria. So yeah, I'll just give over the mic to him.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ango. I'm Wale Okediran. I'm a medical doctor by training, but in the last 10 years, I've moved into full-time writing. I think after fulfilling my father's wish to be a doctor, I've now gone back to my my original love, that's writing. I also had a stint as a member of parliament in Nigeria. That means I was also a politician. And along the line, I've been able to put together 14 novels. One of them, Tenants of the House, was adapted into a movie and was on Netflix for about 2 years. And then a couple of years ago, while trying to mentor young writers, I established the Ebedi International Writers Residency in Nigeria. It's been on for about 12 years now. Currently, I'm the Secretary General of the Pan-African Writers Association. My station is in Accra, Ghana, and that is where I'm talking from. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for honoring the invitation. We are honored. And I will be moving to Professor Ndi, to Professor Bill Ndi, the Power President and Professor at Tuskegee Uni. So, Dr. Ndi, I give the mic to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ango. Before I even say anything about myself, I just want to piggyback on what everybody has said. It's been a very big pleasure for me to just listen to the presentations. And I would like to encourage the young writers or the young viewers here. They might not be writers or they might be aspiring to be writers. Dr. Wale Okediran just mentioned the Ebedi International Writers Residency Program in Nigeria. They should pay attention to that. They should endeavor to work towards attending the residency program, because that residency has gone on to producing international prize winners. It is not about the prize, but just taking that time and going there, completing what they've started is wonderful. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm Professor Bill Ndi, and I am here at Tuskegee University, president of the Pan-African Writers Association. And I always like to introduce myself as essentially a poet and a playwright. But recently, I found myself taken to something. I just realized even this morning that my first love in writing was not even poetry. It was not playwriting. It was just writing riddles and jokes. And I have come to terms with writing what I call aphorisms or insightful sayings. And I just found myself early this morning, I was writing some of those aphorisms inspired by what is happening in and around the world. And I remember as we're talking, Dr. Joyce Ashutanjan mentioning the fact that Chinua Achebe regretted this. And as recently as yesterday in one of my classes, I'm teaching students and trying to have them change their perspective of the way they look at their elders, because they might think they are educated, they are so knowledgeable that they don't have anything to learn from them. And one of the aphorisms I came up with was very simple, that an older fool or madman knows a thing or two that a young wise person could learn from. So let's think about it. And this sits very well with Achebe's regret that agency was taken from the elderly during colonial times, and we still see the same things today. And if you are a writer, you're trying to mentor young people, like in one of my creative writing classes, I had students actually tell me, oh, writing is all about breaking the rules. Why are you teaching us about these rules? Why do you want to tell me this? And I told them, listen, if you say writing is about breaking the rules, I'm all happy that you should break the rules. But what are the rules you are breaking if you don't know the rules? So I would rest it right there. I look forward to this conversation because there is a lot that we can talk about. Thank you once more, Dr. Ango.
Thank you, Professor Bill. So
Yeah.
before we start, I would like to put in some house rules. So please, if you have any questions, just write them in the chat. I'll be looking at them and taking notes so I could include on my list. It's going to be an intensive ride. So just hang on there and see what you'll be getting today. And we have 7 sections, as I said before. We will start on with the African writing identity. And the very first question will go to Professor Joyce. So, what truly defines an African writer in today's literary landscape? So, the origin, the voice, or the responsibility? What would you say, Dr. Joyce?
I don't know whether I want to be drawn to that debate. Because it takes me back to 1963 in Makerere, where the Achebe and Co. were grappling. And I remember, what's that guy's name? Obi Wale?
Yeah.
Who was very adamant about what African writing should be. And I must say that that's the last I think I heard of that name, Obi Wale. I haven't heard of him. I don't know whether he wrote, maybe the Honorable Okediran will tell me about Obi Wale, whether he ever wrote anything. So what will I define an African writer? I don't even think that I want to bring anything to bear on that, because it depends on what we are looking at. Are we looking at the geography? Are we looking at the content? You know, and I think that for those of us who have now left the country, sometimes I don't even know what I am. When somebody tells me that, where is that accent from? I tell them I don't know, and I'm not being sarcastic. Because in America, when they hear it, they tell me, are you Jamaican? Are you from Haiti? Are you from somewhere in Africa? They can place me. When I go to Cameroon, the accent is foreign. So I don't think I have an answer. I would shy away from a definition.
Wow. You see? Yes. So thank you very much, Professor Joyce. And I know Professor Joyce was talking of Obi Wale. He died in 1977, but he was really well known for his book, The Dead End of African Literature. That was really one of his paramount pieces that he wrote, trying to call for African writers to write in their indigenous languages. So that's him. Thank you so much. Now, I will take on the second question, will go to Rumbi. How can African writers balance indigenous storytelling with global literary techniques without losing authenticity?
Thank you, Dr. Ango. I think the main issue there is we're in the world of fast evolving technology. And in order to maintain that balance, we need to be at par with technology. What's the latest trends? Not latest trends, but you need to be in touch with how are we communicating? How do you get your message across? Yet you need to know why. What is your why? As long as you know your why, what you're writing, you remain authentic and you maintain that original voice that push you to writing in the first place. Because now there's this issue of trying to keep up with being viral. People just change what they were writing or what they were thinking to whatever is making them viral. And that wave of, there's a word for it, that things are just fleeting, but there's a word for it that we are chasing, that consumerism. Yes, we need to know, as long as you know your why, you will You will avoid being drawn out by consumerism because that's what makes you just go with the wind. And in doing so, you lose your authenticity and you're just doing it for clout. Yes, that's what we're doing. People are doing things for clout. So once you do that, you will lose your authenticity and you lose your why. So I would urge people, just know your why, stick to your why, and in that way, you maintain your voice, and yet you are being relevant. The idea is to be relevant. It's no use saying, I'm going to stick to this 1980 way of doing things, yet no one is listening, then you're not relevant. So just that knowing what's relevant, what is your why, and why. Yeah, basically that. I'm just rambling about the why, but the issue is remaining true to your why while embracing technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rumi. That was great. Know your why to keep up with your authenticity. I like that. So that is a good one. And now I'm going to Rina. Many Africans hesitate to call themselves writers. So until they publish something. And even the community even gives that pressure. They will not call you a writer till they see something. They can even mock you on that. How can we shift that identity by recognizing somebody who is already showing signs of writing and actually moving change, of those just trying to create a space for philosophy, just philosophizing with people? So how would you say that?
That's interesting because I wrote in the chat that you are a writer the moment you write. And I really believe that. And I don't subscribe to, you know, having certain degrees or certain experience to be a writer. I mean, kids are writers. I started writing as a kid, I had something to say. And I think as long as you have something to say and you're brave enough to share it, to speak it, then you are a writer. So I think that we can encourage young people to go ahead and write. There's nothing stopping you. I think that there is a need for new stories. And I say new also with the understanding that there is nothing new under the sun, but there are many, many, many stories that never get told because people are self-censoring, and to me, that's the worst thing you can do. Before you even get to the publishing stage, you're already internally, censoring your truth, And with this fear, we lose a lot of stories being told. So I think we really need to encourage people to share their truth, to honor their inner voice. It doesn't have to sound like anybody else. And honestly, I believe that even though I am a journalist and a public health communicator, and I want people to pay attention to what I'm saying, and I want them to change their behaviors, I'm also aligned with, I really don't write to be understood personally. I write because I have truth that I need to get out. And where is that feeling coming from? I mean, it's beyond me, right? And I have responsibility to get that truth out. So I think as long as you want to pick up a pen or open your laptop and start, writing, you are a writer. I hope I answered that.
Yes, thank you, Rina. So I'm actually excited about this next question. This next question goes to Honorable Dr. Okediran, and I'm actually writing because of his. This question piggybacks on his book, The House Tenant, where he brings out the typical middle class anxieties of Nigerian population, the corruption, the survival of everyday intuitions, and this whole moral decay aspects. That thing, it really stands in the middle of what we're talking about today. So, Honorable Dr. Okediran, how can we write stories that break stereotypes yet remain proudly African in that way? You're muted.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ango. Well, I think just like some of the former speakers have said, you should write stories from your heart, and you have to be true to what you are writing about. Like I said earlier on, my background, I was in medical practice before I was, I don't know whether I would use that word, that I was tricked or encouraged to go into politics. And so when I got to the parliament, many of the activities there were a bit puzzling to me, a bit confusing, challenging, and sometimes astounding. And I decided to keep a diary of activities. And my original plan was to write a biography. But then I was cautioned that when you write such things, you have to reveal so many secrets, and then you may get into trouble. So I turned into a fiction. Actually, I call it faction, facts and fiction. And that was what I was able to put together in Tenants of the House. And like you said, I was true to my environment. We all know that African politics is so challenging. Yes, it can be exciting, but at the same time, it can also be a lot of, full of a lot of intrigues, corruption, and in fact, people will say, we tell them that something is not right. They will say, "Oh, that's politics. That's politics," and you start assuming that politics is synonymous with all that is bad. And so I decided to put together my story to create an idealistic politician who wanted to change his environment and all the problems he went through, even falling in love with somebody he wanted to rescue from problems, and even allowing himself to be flogged because he wanted to marry a Fulani lady and all that stuff. And then, so it was activities around politics, around a typical African environment. And I think we should not run away from all this. But at the end of it, in the middle of it, there are also some nice, pleasant activities that I was also able to capture. People who are able to triumph over evil, love that cut across religious and ethnic divisions. So I would say the typical African story can also be beautiful, even though it can be challenging. And we have to keep it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My last question to you, we might see another question in between. Were you part of that novel? Because one could realize some parallels with you inside that book.
Yeah,
that's why it's faction.
That's a typical question. In fact, there are so many characters in that book that there was a lady in the parliament who accosted me one day and said, I casted my heroine after her because she's a troublesome lady and all kind of stuff. I had to, each time I see her, I have to run away so that he will not be angry with me. I think, yes, you are right. Usually they say every novel is autobiographical. I think I put myself on my my image in the chief character because I wanted an idealistic political environment. Like I said, I came from a different background. I was a medical practitioner for more than 30 years before I went into politics. And so for me, it was a very strange environment. And sometimes people will be looking at me and asking me, what am I doing in that place? That I should go back to where I've come from. And so I tried to make the hero of the book very idealistic. He wanted to change things. He wanted everything to be perfect. But at the end, he faced a lot of odds. And I was never flogged because I didn't go into that kind of relationship. But some of my colleagues still believe that most of the stuff there were personal. But that's one of the things you go through when the moment you want to write. People look at you suspiciously, as if you are part of the story you have written. And especially your mother or your grandmother, they will think that all the beautiful love stories and love scenes in the book came from you, not knowing that some of these are made up. So that is the sacrifice you go through when you are a writer. People claim that you are in the story. Thank you.
Oh, goodness. Thank you so much. Yes, my next question goes to Professor D. What can we learn from pre-colonial oral traditions about building a modern literary identity?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ango. This is a very great question. And it is a question I exhort every writer to give it a thought, because our African ancestral oral tradition warranted or warrants that the community comes together to share things happening in the community in a common setting, document collective memory and individual memory during storytelling time, and share the values that we all have as a community. And I think this is something very important, especially for the modern times. And we can actually use literature in a way to foster dialogue. I'm talking of fostering dialogue. I just remember we came back from Russia just a few weeks ago, where I sat on a panel talking about using translation of African literature as a means to foster dialogue and world peace, as a means to preserve our cultural heritage, as a means to challenge individualistic Western literary norms, where you can consume a story is to be consumed individually. We, in the oral tradition, it is, if there is a story, that story must be shared. You see? And you realize that our African oral tradition is an interdisciplinary literary practice in which there is a blend of poetry, song, history, myth, performance, style, fashion, and everything. And you would realize that most of us here on this panel, we embrace hybrid genres. I remember Dr. Ashutantang mentioning that she's a poet, but she's essentially a storyteller. In every poet is a storyteller, in every poet is a historian, in every poet is a mythologist, in every poet is a performer. And Dr. Joyce did not say that she's an actress. And I would like to mention that she's an actress, not just the backstage actress, but she has acted in many scenarios. And looking at what the modern day writer could learn from this is mixing fiction with ethnography, with myths, reflect lived realities more authentically, like the Honorable Secretary General just mentioned, how he related what was happening in his in the Parliament in Tenants of the House. And it made me reflect on the title Tenants of the House, because the parliament is not a place where you live there permanently. That's not your home. You're a member of the House, but you don't live there permanently. So there is just a whole lot. How many minutes do I have to even carry on this? Because we could go on and on. I could keep talking about many other things.
2 minutes.
I know you. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Ango.
No, I said 2 minutes. You said how many minutes? I said
all right, thank you. So another thing we could learn from, all right, is that in our oral culture, our traditions are rooted in our indigenous languages. They carry the cultural nuances, they carry our worldview. So if we are to promote writing in African languages or multilingual literature, this would serve as a way of strengthening cultural identity that would resist colonialism. And this brings to mind my bosom friend of blessed memory, the late Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who decided to write in Kiguyu. Okay, we could look at also the role of the griot in our society. We could look at our oral tradition in which rhythm and repetition is used to enhance memory as a technique that enrich a style. We could use that even in our modern day writing. And lastly, I will talk about the interconnectedness of the human and spiritual, because our oral tradition always linked our human experiences to our ancestral, spiritual, and ecological experiences. So these are things that we could learn from. As writers, we can try to explore holistic worldviews that challenge Western materialism and move from there. I thank you very much. But before I even say thank you, let me throw one last thing, because the oral tradition preserved identity and resistance during colonialism, and we can use that in today's world because we are resistant and we are resilient to all the pressures that mount on us as Black people, as a people, and use our literature as memory archive. I rest my case there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, thank you all. We're moving over to the next section, which will be on censorship, expression, and the taboos. And the very first question will go to Professor Joyce. This will be a double-faceted question because she is like one of the icons of Cameroon as a writer in so many domains. And as I said at the beginning of the panel, I even earned my petrol money, I think, for the whole of this month because we have her on the panel. And I still do not see the person on the chat. Yeah, I don't see this person present. Maybe he's going to come in later. So the question is, before you climb up the ladder and be kind of this icon, there are chances you've gone through rejection and really trials. So my question will be around that. What are the most subtle but dangerous forms of censorship that African writers face today? And how do you deal with the fear of rejection, backlash, when your truth challenges different aspects of culture?
Before I answer that, thank you. I just want to comment on some of the things I have heard, some of the ideas. See, now I wish I was writing them down. But let me come to the last speaker. I am a sucker for Achebe. And I think that he actually created a roadmap on what we could do with pre-colonial stuff and how you can incorporate, and I think that he did it very well, whether it's using stories, not just fairy tales, what we called our tales, how the way he incorporated it into the storytelling. We all remember Things Fall Apart when Okonkwo is, after the killing of Ekemefuna, and he's feeling very weak and he's feeling down and he's beating himself up. He cannot understand why a man like him can be feeling that way. And then you remember that mosquito around his ear, you know, and we hear about the story of the mosquito and the ear, how the mosquito, why the mosquito comes to remind the ear every time that I'm not dead. You thought I was skinny, I would die. And at that particular time in the story, it's because the death of Ekemefuna would haunt him to his own death. You know, and so we can do that. And the more you know of your culture, the more you are blessed with things to use. Recently, I was writing a short story, and before I knew it, I realized that I was using a divination that my mother used to do. She used to use 2 leaves, and she'll come at the back of the house, and she'll throw the 2 leaves. If both of them are face up, it means nothing is happening. That is, there's no decision. If we're wondering, is this person going to come today? If it does that, then that means that there's no decision. If it's one up, one down, that means bad news. If it's all face down, good news. And before I knew it, I was using these decisions to tell me which way to go with the story. If it's good news, then I'll say something good. If it's bad news, then I'll say something painful. So the truth about it is that our pre-colonial oral literature offers so much that if we know it, we can really use it to innovate our modern writing. Now, coming to censorship, I think the first one for me is self-censorship. It's self-censorship. When we started reading, we did not see a lot of people like us. Our role models were not us. We're not. I didn't have when I started reading African writers, it was mostly male writers. And then in Cameroon, it was always Nigerians. And after Nigerians, Kenyans, and Ngugi and stuff. So it was not something that I did not see a Cameroonian woman writer in front of me like that. Later on, my aunt, Mrs. Ashu, wrote Ayamo's Days at school. So when you start writing, it's almost like, I used to write because of my background. I go and put it in the notice board and stuff. But up to today, I don't understand how, if I did not know that I could publish or I could, that in the university, I don't remember any teacher telling me that you could publish. But I would have been so ready. I would have been so ready. So you have that self-censorship. You're like, okay, can my word go beyond my scribbles, sharing it with my friends, putting it on the notice board? Is it worthy enough to be bound the way I read other books? That's self-censorship. Then, of course, there is the issue of the publishing. You know, again, in Cameroon, we had a unique situation because of our minority status. My voice as an Anglophone writer was also challenged. You know, if you write in English, are you accorded that same privilege? What do you write about so that you are accepted? You know, and of recent, another level of censorship that in terms of content is, as a writer in the diaspora, my relationship with home is very interesting. Sometimes I miss even the things that used to disempower me out of nostalgia. One of my poems is on a song Mfugu. That song is in the Ewondo language, the language of the president that has been there forever, the language that was used on our TVs to oppress us. Every song was from that ethnic group. But when I came to the US after about, 15, 20 years, I was missing that song like crazy. And I kept asking, I would sing it and nobody would know it, or they would know it, but they cannot remember the name. When eventually somebody shared it with me, I wrote a poem about it. Now, when I shared it with a friend who was Anglophone, she says, I cannot imagine you are missing Bikutsi. It's like, how dare you miss that song until you're writing a poem about it? And so that kind of censorship, you know. Of recent, my last book was Lockdown Chronicles. Lockdown Chronicles is a collection of letters that I exchanged with a renowned Cameroon African journalist, international journalist, Eric Chinje. Now in Cameroon, lockdown is synonymous to lockdown because of the crisis, this armed struggle that has plagued Cameroon since 2016. And so somebody was upset that when he said lockdown, how can two Anglophones write about lockdown and it's not a lockdown in Cameroon? And it's a lockdown in America. I'm like, maybe COVID lockdown was nothing for you there, but it was something here. It was an existential crisis here, which got me to that space. So the censorship comes from different angles. And interestingly, it comes from within, a lot of times from within. Is there any other part to that question I missed?
You're muted.
Sorry. Oh no, I was actually looking for the Fugu you shared. I remember I was so excited when you shared it, and I was thinking this is going to go down. So I was actually looking for it to because it's just about 1 minute to just play it, because you actually read it out, which I really liked.
Yes, I did.
Yes, I was trying to trace it so I can play it. But yeah, this is it. I found it. Here we go. Just 1 minute. Bear with me, guys. There you go.
The story of the Sosobala and Akomamba's gyrating children. Voice. Are we supposed to be seeing a video? Mfugo.
Oh, what am I even sharing?
A poem by Joyce.
I thought I was sharing the right screen, but it's this one here. Perfect.
Mfugo. A poem by Joyce Ashuntantan. I have listened to it 15 times already. What was there in my voice that sent you searching? How did you see beyond my now to reach my exiled soul? I ride the rhythm into the Atlantic. Like slaves of old, the waves lead me, a return trip to ancestral shores. Shoulders tell in back and forth motions the story of the Sosobala and Akomamba's gyrating children. I stamp the ground and my cry beckons from the belly of balafons. My self-exile is a map I refuse to draw. Mfugu, Rosie Bush. My self-exile is a map I refuse to draw.
Great. So for this, I instantly saw the meaning of what you say. Something really pursues you. You're out on your personal exile, and the things you did not really admire or like, they haunt you into your exile. And I thought I did not see it very well, but now you said it and it confirmed what I was trying to see. So thank you very much for this piece. So my next...
Now I have to be careful what I send to you.
Yes. So now my next question, I hope I'm on track with my questions now. So
censorship. I think we're on censorship.
yes, thank you very much. Yes, my next question goes to Rumbi. Can cultural taboos ever serve as a protective function in storytelling, or do they only limit freedom?
That's a heavy one because we'll always be tied. We are tied to our culture no matter where we go or no matter what we do. And they serve both ways. Whether it's unfortunate, I don't know, but they go two ways. I'll start with the good way, and then I'll end with how they limit us. So the good way is that I think in this day of amplified social media presence and information sharing and disinformation, misinformation, all sorts, that those taboos sort of, they protect us, especially the vulnerable children. They protect us from certain topics, like there are certain things related to sexuality. We talk of pedophiles, we talk of exposure to some of these issues we would rather have children not know of, and that's where they come in. But now, because everyone is empowered, children have their rights, even at 6 years, a 6-year-old can take you to the social workers and you're arrested or something like that. So those taboos in that regard, they help guard such issues from children so children can grow. I think that's where they serve as, in a good way, in a positive way, not only for children, even, I don't want to talk about the institution of marriage, but there are also things that were safeguarded in that regard through those taboos and that censoring of such issues, that you can't talk about certain things in public. You can't be writing about these. These are intimate things, or these are only meant for the aunties, the uncles, etc. So in that way, it was safeguarding us. Like, for instance, now you see blogs, people are writing, they are fighting, literally fighting through, okay, they're airing out, they are venting in their blogs. But what they're doing is they are attacking the family institution. So how do you again look at each other after exposing such things on social media or through your blogs? I don't know. But now the good side of the bad side, it does limit freedom in many ways, because before you write, you're faced with all these issues in your head. What will my father say? What will my grandmother say if she reads this, or if she knows I wrote about this? And that will limit what you write. You end up writing for them, not for your truth. Like Raina said, what is your truth? Professor Joy said, you should be authentic. But now you can't. And also, like Dr. Wallace said, once you write, you are naked. But because of those taboos, you are forced to see how much nakedness am I willing to expose. So you end up writing a little bit of what you want. And in that limit that it exposes us to, you end up not being yourself, which is very bad for a writer. And it's also where you need to say, you know what? I'm going to write what I need to write, regardless of what anyone thinks. Because if you're going to be looking at who will say this, why would they say, you end up not writing anything at all, because everyone will have something to say at the end of the day. Taboo or not taboo, abomination or not, olosho, no. You just need to remain true to yourself and just say, I don't care. I attended a workshop, I think that was my first one with Power. And in the audience, one professor said, I think it's Professor Toyini said, just don't care. That's savage to say, but there comes a time where you just shouldn't care. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the reality. I think that's all.
Thank you so much, Jen. I remember one of our first conversations, you wanted us to launch one of your books you co-authored. So, but your first question was quite intriguing because you said you had a strong language in the book, and in the part you quoted, it was a kind of quarrel between a certain Jack in the book and some friend. And I was really intrigued because I was thinking this is a good place. I actually discussed this with Professor D. I was saying this is a good place to actually see why she came up with that and what prompted her to write this. Because sometimes, as Dr. Joyce says, we censor ourselves. And you were already blocking the narrative by saying it's strong language, but we don't know about the full extent of the book. And I'm still interested to to launch that book. So tell me what actually made you to think that was hard already. You already blocked it before coming, and eventually you said you will skip it. You will not do it.
Okay, so my co-author, okay, originally I write random awesomeness, literary fiction, women's fiction, and then Elliot Chatima is more on the crime fiction side. So I said, I'm happy to venture into other forms of writing. So now we write that. So from Elliot's lens, he says, we are writing about drug abuse, gangsters, there's so much corruption and mafia in Zimbabwe, and it's a global network anywhere across the world. And that's their language. So he said, you know what, Chen, we need to write their language. We need to be in that character. So that's how. So if I'm writing that crime fiction, we have to together. We are going dirty. By dirty, I mean we are using mafia language. So that scenario you saw is just like 10% of how nasty or brutal that book is. And it was talking about the land barons, the richer getting richer at the expense of the general masses, stealing land. And they'll use such language to intimidate people. So we're just saying, this is what's on the ground. This is how they talk. And that's why I felt that book, it's too intense. That language, it will be too intense for anyone because there's a lot of those words and other things, nasty things the mafia does. And I'll tell you, Dr. Ango, we are struggling to get it launched in my country. We don't know the exact reasons, but this could be some of the reasons because it's tackling those issues, and I don't know. So we haven't launched it yet because of that. But,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Thank you. Great. So my next question goes to Rina. What role should writers play in dismantling harmful silences, especially around politics, gender, and identity?
You mean self-silence or?
There is always some kind of silence. And I actually chose this question for you because you have a kind of multifaceted background in identity wise. So you have all these palettes that maybe you visited from your journalism point of view, the political scenario of the USA, and all these gender and identity kind of things. So the question is, what role should writers play in dismantling all of this that nobody really talks about? Or people talk about in some funny ways?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. I'm not sure where to start actually, but what I am seeing, especially on newsletter platforms where it's just easier for people to self-publish. You can write something, in 5 minutes and get it in front of, hundreds. Some people even have like thousands of readers. And I'm seeing a lot of think pieces that are coming out. And unfortunately, a lot of them are written in a way to um, encourage the algorithm to serve them up more. And so I do think that that does negatively impact your truth. You start feeding the beast under the guise of being like a cultural interpreter or a truth teller or truth seeker. I really think that social media, there are pros and cons. So you can get your workout to faster, more people, but then there's also that pressure of feeding the beast, wanting to be seen and showing up in the algorithm. So I think that when it comes to truth telling, I think you really, really have to just be committed to the truth, no matter if you're getting 1 like, 2 likes, I think you have to stay committed to it, and eventually your readers will find you. Now, and I don't mean they're going to find you if you don't put yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there, but what I'm saying is, well, I think the most insidious form of censorship is internal silence. Like you have something to share, something that's like burning in your heart, but you're afraid, how are people going to receive this? What did they think? I don't know enough, like who is this person? Where did she come from? Who are her connections? And it's like all these things, but honestly, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I've been in spaces with scholars and like they're not that impressive, And yes, they got the degrees, but their connection to lived realities, how people are really living, and even how their place in the world ties or is connected to everyone else is like very limited, because they're in their shells. And so we really do need people to speak. Just speak. Who can tell you anything, really, nowadays? Like who? Just speak. I don't know. Am I answering your question, Dr. Ango?
Yes, I know. I thought I was going to deal with you, but you actually brought out what I was trying to get. Like, yes, the shells in which most people they live them. Let me say the big guns, the educated people, they live in shells, and mostly they don't know the reality. And I will say, yeah, we all fall short in that sense. And I will still link this question and take it back to Honorable Dr. Wale because he is the Secretary General, and for years he has been dealing with this terrain. So I will really pull it into his own question too. This whole idea of the silences around politics, gender, and identity. And then the question is, if self-censorship, sometimes, so is it sometimes worse than external censorship? How can we get free? Because you succeeded to get free and you actually moved from one main career path into politics and then into writing without bounds, and you are always at the leadership position, and right now you are a Secretary General leading this train we're all managing to patch into. So
well, thank you so much. I think we continue from where Rumbi stopped. I think you just have to dare the consequences if you want to write, because the duty of a writer is actually to open the so-called Pandora box. That is our duty, to write the unusual, write the unspeakable. And that is the only way you can be authentic as a writer. And I've done this several times, even sometimes to the chagrin and fear of my family members, who are always scared that I may get into trouble by writing what I consider to be authentic. I think I saw that problem when I was a medical student, and I was the editor of the campus newspaper. That those days we used to have campus magazines where we say we do caricatures of people who found doing something wrong. And one of the, I think the vice chancellor of the university was said to have been seen peeing in the flower bed by somebody. So, I mean, as the editor, I just did a caricature of him, a cartoon. And lo and behold, I was hauled before the university disciplinary committee to explain why I should not be expelled from the university for daring to caricature the vice chancellor. And I got away from that, and I think that that was the inoculation that I needed to kill this fear. And along the line, I've gone on to do so many writings where I was able to be authentic. Self-censorship is actually a terrible thing. I call it a wet blanket, because even before starting out, you are already immobilized. And sometimes it's unnecessary, because when you do that, you become irrelevant. Because as a writer, like I said, I think our duty, we should not play holier than thou, not in any way that we are holier than that. But I guess we need to also be authentic, be realistic in expressing ourselves. Once in a while, we may, maybe for our own safety or protection, we may try to douse this a bit. But having gone through people like Wole Soyinka, and I mean, well, I see him as my mentor. He has gone through so many things. He keeps telling me that he has badly influenced me, because he thinks my writing are becoming more daring than his own. But I think as writers, we have that duty to our conscience, to our environment, and and you never know, from this your writing, you could change the society, even though that should not be your primary objective. I don't believe writers who think that their duty is to change society. I mean, I think we are thinking too much of that, but it has happened historically. So many Uncle Tom's Cabin, all those old books. So many books have been written that have drawn consciousness of the authorities to improve things. Another example I have is when we do this compulsory national service in Nigeria. I think it's also done here in Ghana, where after your university, you are supposed to serve the country for 1 year. And I find myself in a hospital where some religious people were in charge. And I observed some of the relationship between them, between the male and female gender of that religious organization. And it came out in my novel, Strange Encounters. And just like Rumbi, that book was almost untouched. Was untouched by publishers for about 10 years, until finally one publisher published it. And it went on to win the best fiction book in Nigeria for that year. And it also went on stage. So you can see that it pays to to be daring, but not to be too, you have to protect yourself once in a while. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think I saw something on the chat, and I will carry this question back to Professor Joyce. I think she had something to say from what I saw in the background. Yes, the harmful silences around the politics, gender, and identity.
What did you see?
No, I think I saw you write something, so I was thinking maybe you were interested to answer part of the question, the role writers should play to dismantle these harmful silences.
No, I was just responding to somebody who said, talking about languages, indigenous languages.
Oh, great.
So do we let it go, or do we have agency to do something about it? And I'm like, short answer, we can't let it go.
Oh, right. Okay. Great.
But if you want me to say something, you said, how do we deal with silences?
Yes.
I think one of the big things about educating women is giving them confidence in their own voice. If there's any harm that has been done to women, to young girls, is their voice does not count. You know, when they say children are to be seen, not to be heard. You know, it's the same thing with women. And because most of what women used to do took place in the domestic sphere, it was not valued. Meanwhile, we know that in a home, the kitchen was the powerhouse. So once we start educating women and they find value in their voice and they know that their voice matters, in fact, the voice was suppressed because it is powerful. And I think, again, we'll come back to this pre-colonial times. Black women, African women in the past had a lot of agency. The whole idea of stay-home women, that's not African, it's not Black. They went out with the men and walked, went to the farms every morning. By 5 a.m., you're out, you're there. And in the African setup, women's voices are important. When you need some advice, you need the critical thing, you need to pinch the old grandmother. So one way, that is why education is important, because it empowers. It empowers and helps to cancel those silences. And I always say this with my poetry. When people read my poetry and it's like, oh, it's erotic. I'm like, it's when I write erotic poetry or poetry that seems to play with sexuality, I'm not writing it because I'm trying to be pornographic. No, it is resistance, because it is things that I was not supposed to talk about. It is my poetry of resistance. So now I can talk about my body. I can talk about sex. I can say exactly what I want to say. I can, so my love poetry becomes a poetry of resistance. I don't have to talk about politics for me to resist. And that comes with education, valuing our being, knowing that we are important, we are here. I liked when Reina started by saying, I am here present. I am here. That is powerful for women. When you can say, I am here, I'm a body, I'm a breathing being, I count, I matter, you will start speaking up and it will start dismantling those silences.
Wow. Yes, thank you so much, Professor Joyce. I will say a thing or two about this whole thing, about the community in general. We have a culture. I've experienced a scenario twice with two of my children and two of my cousins. So it was really kind of, you could easily bypass them. So one of my children, the one that is really quiet, you will not think he will say a word. And one cousin visited and she was being concerned. You are new here because we're here just interimly for my sabbatical. So she was concerned and said, "Oh, I hope you're not being bullied in school as an African boy." And my son, he was just 14, just a few months ago. He said, "I'm not that kind to be bullied." So when he said, even me, I was taken aback because I didn't know he was the person who would be bold in front of an adult. He is the one who is very silent. So I was taken aback, and I saw the kind of the sight on my cousin's face was like, this child is supposed to be heard, like he is supposed to sit and listen. Don't you think you should sit and listen for adults to talk about this? I was just giving you an advice, or I was just asking you a question, but I didn't need this strong opinion. So I saw it. And the second very similar incident happened with a younger one who was who was 10 at that time. He came in and saw something because he's very eager to talk. So he said, "Don't you think we should be eating this thing right now? I think this serves as some kind of," whatever he said at that time. He said, so my cousin turned around and said, "But it is not yours, so you should not even talk about it." And my son turned around and said, "I'm not that kind of person to want another person's thing." So I was just saying it's a general topic, and I saw the deep frown on my cousin's face, and he actually literally said, "You should not say I'm not that kind of a person. Other people should tell you. Don't say it by yourself." in that, I just said, no, we'll talk about this another time. But we hold our meetings at home, and I told them, you don't have to wait for people's merits, but we have to watch closely, because there's a thin line between growing too much ego and claiming things about yourself. But this one you said is a simple thing. You should be able to own your personality and really declare, I am not a liar or I'm not a thief. It's the same, like I'm not that kind of a person to take somebody's thing. But you should not hush yourself down because some elder tells you you have to wait for it, as if it's a merit that has to be distributed to children. So we have this thing going on in our culture. Like Professor Joyce said, children have to be seen and not heard. And it's a deep censorship that grows into adulthood, and then people don't know when to own up to what they truly own. They want the crowd to tell them, we know we like you, we know you're saying it, and you don't know exactly who you are. You don't intentionally own up to your personality. I don't know if people have the same kind of feeling, but that's just a strong thing that I could piggyback from the statements I had. Yes, thank you very much. And this is the last question in this section. It goes to Professor D. How can publishers, writers' clubs, and readers collaborate to create a safer space for courageous literature?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ango. Before I even go to answering the question or addressing this question, I would like to just piggyback off what has been said so far. And I would like us to understand or to acknowledge the fact that writing as an African is an act of resistance. It is an act of resilience. It is a commitment to writing. And if you are committed to writing, then you must, the truth or your truth must be the flag that you uphold. And if you uphold the truth, you have to speak it quietly and firmly without waiting or expecting any form of external validation. From Rumbi's response talking about people wanting the clicks and the likes on social media, that's not what a writer who wants to stand out is out for. You write because you have something to say, and that something is a compelling truth that you want. And Dr. Waller's idea of not writing because you want to change society, but you are writing because you want to bring a degree of conscientization to the society. You want society to see what it really is. And back with Rumbi's book, right? That book should actually be launched as soon as possible because it is a compelling book that would allow society to see itself for what it is. And that is the kind of books that would generally call for change. Now, to the question asking me how publishers, writing clubs, and collaborators could create safe spaces to encourage, young writers. I think publishers can do a lot of things. They could champion diverse voices, offer editorial protection, which I think I see WAFORD doing, create imprints, and I'm intimated. WAFORD has the WAFORD Press, and I would be delighted to submit one of my manuscripts for consideration. The publishers could also partner with writing clubs or communities. And with writing clubs, what do they serve? These are places that foster trust, they allow for people to support each other. The Writers Club could decide to host themed events, and Writers Clubs equally could connect with publishers. Writers Clubs should actually be like incubators for writing. And that is why I was applauding and lauding Dr. Okediran's effort with the Ebedi International Writers Residency Program and encouraging students that if they just think about a place where they want to go and write, they could actually, consider applying to go and spend some time at the Ebedi Writers Club. So, let me just talk a thing or two about readers, because readers could support, courageous authors by buying their books, engage in critically and respectfully talking about the works you've read without being hostile, without dismissing works as if the work doesn't speak to you, it doesn't mean it is not of substance. Okay? And readers should be encouraged to participate in book clubs, to participate in forums. They could, also advocate literary freedom. I'm talking about book clubs. I didn't mention one of the book clubs that created great writers like Shoyinka Dembari Club was a book club at the university that started just like that and made of readers, and they started writing. So for safe spaces in writing, I can just say it will be a joint initiative led by both readers, writing clubs, and publishers, in which they try to build a form of coalition. And also, in the case of Black and African writing, they should build this coalition to work towards a kind of decolonial or activist literary festivals that they could organize to challenge the dominant narratives. Now, WAFORD is also offering us something like a digital platform, which is a platform where our expressions here, I'm not only sure they are protected, because this is to me, just putting together this panel is a way for us to be able to talk about this, about our writings in a very bold and literary way without fear or favor. So I would rest it by saying, let us continue to be committed in our writing. Let us speak our truth firmly. Let us not wait for external validation, even if we have to behave like the Agama lizard. All right? We fall from a rock, we look around, there is nobody to congratulate us. We nod in affirmation that we have done it. So let's keep the good work on. Thanks, Dr. Ango.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor D. Yes, so there's something I'll be doing, because the panel was meant to be 2 hours and we actually started 30 minutes later. So I'll be taking out 2 sections from the whole panel, which will go into the December panel. So we'll move over to the 3rd section, and then we'll just go to the 7th section and call it for the day. So the 3rd section now is on reading culture, knowledge, and mindset. And if we all keep our answers to 2 minutes, we will maximize the time we have so we don't hold people here. We want to make it exactly 2 hours. So by 1:30 we let people go, or it's like 2:30 in the East. Yeah, so in the Eastern time or a bit further, we don't want to hold people here for more than 2 hours. So our very first question on the reading culture, the knowledge and mindset is to Professor Joyce. What will make Africans read more? Motivation, access, or mindset transformation?
All of the above. all, all of the above. And for those of us who care, we have to be intentional about it. And I just put on the forum there that this summer I organized what I call Trunk a Library. I am the president of an alumni association. I attended an all-girls boarding secondary school in Cameroon called Seka Baptist College. And we have a robust alumni association, over 400 members in 15 chapters, and I'm the national president. And I have been very big on mentorship. Why? Because in Cameroon, like most African countries, we are so big on textbook, education and passing the government slated examinations. And so you have a student who has the GCA ordinary levels, 11 papers, but can't speak, can't talk, doesn't have confidence. And so my goal has been to add extracurricular activities to enable them to be confident speakers. And so what have I done to do that? Today is the International Day of the Girl. So I have been big on that day in Cameroon, in Seka Baptist College, making sure that, first of all, it was not even on their calendar. So now it is a space. And for 3 years, boy, has there been a movement with affirmations. Now they do daily affirmations. Then reading this summer, I did a reading program. I call it Trunk a Library. For those of you who know boarding school, the trunk was a big thing. That's where you put all your goodies and you lock it up. So I used the trunk as a library where I loaded the trunk with books, and the students read, and I actually facilitated 3 sessions. And this is something that I would love once we pick the books, and I would even come to you guys to recommend some books. It would be wonderful if some of you can read the books that we want to share with the students so that we can help to facilitate. This is the first time I did it, and I think I bit more than I can chew. I was struggling because I was the only facilitator. I was trying to get facilitators back at home, and they didn't read on time. And but it was our first time. So we have to be intentional. They have to read. But another thing is that we also have to pick selections. When you're trying to encourage people to read things that they can enjoy. We shared Chimamanda Adichie's Purple Hibiscus, and I had a reaction from one mother who told another person who knows me. He says, that my child is too shy. He says, so when she called to talk, because my child missed the discussion session and she called to talk with my child, I was hiding in the room. I'm the one who gave my child the cell phone. He says, but my child was talking. He said, where are you going to make that thing next year again? This my picking the talk. Now, so he talk. That woman, they talking to the answer. Yes, he could answer because they're directed. I've given question. I've done the prep. I have made them know that their voice matters. So we have to be intentional. And then another thing that we have to realize is that people are not reading also not because they don't want to read. Our African space, reading is a very bourgeois thing. You need light. You need a space of your own. Take a book and be reading in one corner when dishes are there to be washed and things are there, the floor is there to be swept. You're lazy and stuff. And then I also tried to do a book club for women on Facebook, and they enjoyed it. But again, I had to curate the books. Changes by Amata Edu, Baba Sigi's Wives, is that the title? I think Dr. Wale, you can help me there.
That's Lola Shoneyi.
Yes.
His wife.
Yes. So all those kinds of novels, but they had problems to read. So we were going at a snail's speed, but it's amazing that each time they read, the reaction. One last example. as some of you may know, I just am a 2-year survivor of breast cancer. So I spent most of 2023 battling breast cancer. My older sister came to be with me for 5 months, and I was feeding her books. Do you know what she said after reading? She had just finished Americana, and she read, I did Purple Hibiscus, I did Americana, I did Changes, my usual, I have this staple. And you know what she said after? They say, now I see where you get your intelligence from. So it's from these books. He said, so it's from these books. It's almost like she got my secret. And now I understand why my literature teacher had said one time that literature should be made compulsory in schools, because it exposes you to different worldviews and grows your brain.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Joyce. And there is a Babylon here on the charts. I don't know if it's a member, but there's a great write-up here. Our curriculum doesn't empower reading. I, as a science student, think reading is poorly taught. Also, the poor teaching of languages slows reading. Subvocalization, that voice in our mind while reading, is slow. So reading is also slow. Things like reduction, stress patterns are missing, making things even slow. This should be one of my technical cousins. I typically read at about 70% the speed of a child born in the West, checking with others. It is similar. As such, I rarely read. Wouldn't you say you should work on that? Yes.
Well, there's some other person answer, but I want to say that this quickly, that in Africa, I don't know, Cameroon, I don't know whether it's the same with other African countries. There's a division in arts and science students. By the time you're 12, 13, they divide. That you choose to be arts or to be science. And then it looks as if science students are not meant to read. Again, it's something that I have tried to debunk. You guys know Amanda Gorman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was part of her training was by Right Girl, a group in California. I got Right Girl to do a workshop with girls in Cameroon in 2 cities. And my emphasis was on science students to be part of it, because once I made the announcement, people were like, oh, it's for art students. I know it's for everybody. Guess what? The science students are hungry. And because they've been starved, the ones that are inclined, they want to write poetry, they want to write things, but they are science students, so they're starved from that. So that is another thing, but let others speak.
Right, I might jump here really quickly. I just want to address this issue of reading, because the idea of reading, it is not just African. I have taught also in the West. It is something I would say common to the Black world. And some of the things I teach, like public speaking, speech and drama, creative writing, professional and technical writing, I face the same kind of challenges with children who were born in the West. I think the idea is for us to encourage. It is for us to encourage reading without, whether you are doing the sciences. I tell my students, just pick a book and read it for the love of the book. Do a book review of what you have read. Do not sit and expect the knowledge or wisdom. Do not sit and expect the knowledge or wisdom to just come to you. If you are a child born in the West, you are a child born in Africa. Now for us as a people, we or as writers, what we can do is to encourage even our home governments to include reading as part of the curriculum. And reading as part of the curriculum will help our youngsters or our students build what I call the idea bank, because your ideas are limited. Dr. Ashutantang, you just talked about your elder sister's experience, telling you where you get your intelligence from. Because you read, you have access to that book, to the books. So if you have access to books, we can only encourage the governments to make the books available and have the students spend the time, or encourage our parents back home to realize that their children, to conquer the world, they need access to reading. They need time to read. Let them give their children time to do their chores, and also give them time to read. We could talk about this longer than this, but I would say I totally support the idea of poor language teaching. And one of the things I realized is that most of us, even those born in the West, good English is a foreign language to them. We are trying to evolve with paradigms that are foreign to all of us. So it is very challenging. We have to make sure they understand what is standard English and what is spoken English, and if they have to read in those languages. But if they are writing in their native languages, I would be the first to champion that they start learning to read in their native languages before going to read in foreign languages. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll have to add to this. There's something that played out for me that I learned from the West, and I saw it play out really nicely for me and my family. We come from a culture of predominantly a lacking culture. So we're always out there looking for ways to survive or succeed, where we know the underserved communities, they surpass the middle class by far. So the population of the underserved is really big. And we hardly find parents who have the time to sit with children and read when they are small. So when they are really tiny, it's a great idea to have really small children's books. We invest in writing them, so they sit and just read a few lines, whether poetic or just simple books for children. If we create that habit, even if we are very busy, if we go about reading with a child, even just 2 to 3 times in a week, it goes a long way, be it in your own in your own language or a foreign language, but it starts to groom this whole aspect of getting them to read. And I think we should work on that, as really encouraging our neighbor, the next neighbor who doesn't intentionally understand that our culture is a culture of lack, and we should intentionally find this time to spend with the smaller children and get them to read. Even if you have just 5 books in your house, at one point when your child is about 5, the child can memorize that book and be reading it off head and just read and stuff like that. It goes a long way. I experienced it firsthand. You know, we must not have all the hundreds of books, but just a few books for the small child who reads it constantly. They will test for more of the same thing. So thank you. Yes. The next question goes to Rumbi. How do we move from reading for exams to reading for enlightenment and curiosity?
And Dr. Ango, I think this question has been answered in all that has been submitted in previously. So I'll just summarize. So all those points raised are true and apply to this question. It has been said people need to read what they enjoy. So as long as the writers, are only dishing out stuff that's meant for exams, then how will the others read? Like in my country, there was a tendency to say, if I write something for the Ministry of Education, then I'm guaranteed I have an income. So people were flocking to just be writing textbook related, like novels, like said books, sort of. And in that case, people expect, oh, There's no fiction here. It's not exciting. They know they're reading this. So already they're initiated, they're sensitized. I'm reading this for exams because we are writing for exams as well. So we need to write what is enjoyable. Yes, remembering our authenticity, our truth, our why, we still need to say, how can this be consumed by my audience? Then we make it enjoyable. And also the issue of that culture. If in the house there's not even a single book, obviously the people will only be reading what's needed for exams, because in the house there's no example. Start by buying just random books, not specific to say this is a text by Shakespeare, this is by Ngugi, etc. So we need to just create those spaces where we encourage free for reading. And another thing is, if you look nowadays, how many people read the long form text on social media compared to the short 30-second 2 lines? So just that comparison already will show you we have that it still comes on to consumerism. So that inability for children or for even adults to read long form text is where that lack of interest in reading for pleasure comes from. And I would say if we can get support as authors from government, then we can also produce other forms of content of writing that appeals to people, I think basically that's it. Just that.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, we have been prompted to actually open it to the audience, but I still maintain maybe we just leave it till the end so it becomes a conclusion kind of thing so we save time. So, but we'll try to hurry up so the audience can get a chance to say a thing or two. And I've not seen questions, I've seen statements in the. Oh, there's one. I would like to publicly thank Professor Joyce for an article I read, Anglophone Cameroon Literature, 1959 to 1990. That's Professor Marfo Edouard. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm thankful for, I think it's public access that put it out there. And I'm glad that people are finding it useful. Thank you. Every writer anticipates readers, so it's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes. So the next question now goes to Rina. So the whole thing is each time we hear a millionaire coming forward or billionaire, I say majority of them, you always hear that even the school dropouts, some of them, even Bill Gates, he dropped out of school at some point. You always hear them really fantasize about their reading culture. They read books. They went through different kinds of trials, but they read books. So right now, this question is, why is it that in the West, readers turn wealthier, while in the African readers is rare to see? Let's say a general Pan-African culture. This question might look redundant, but it still has a nuance to the whole thing here.
Well, I've never lived on the African continent, but I certainly can speak as an American. Knowledge here it's, what do I want to say? Precious. It's exclusive. People will choose where to live based on the quality of a school system. And not everybody has that, the resources or the privilege to be able to do that. So I think that, in the US, knowledge is, gosh, I hate to use the word sacred. That's not the word I'm trying to say. It's exclusive, right? So these billionaires, they know the magic of literature. They know the magic of knowledge. That's why they're reading these books, you know, all the time. I mean, you do not have to travel the world to be exposed to the world. You know, the brain is powerful. And that's why I opened up today with my focus on, you know, imagination, presence, imagination. So books allow that expansiveness, right? And so the wealthy, the elites, they understand this. You know, they understand that reality unfolds from a single thought, right? So they are very much um, aware of the power of knowledge. Um, so yeah, I mean, you know, that's why you're seeing like, especially like in the, you know, in the US, all these books being banned. Um, that's, you know, severely limiting people's freedoms. You know, when you limit the um types of information that they can interpret and then start to realize like possibilities for themselves. So when you have a group of people who can't even imagine um, being more than what, you know, is right in front of them, they're easier to control. So yeah, I think knowledge in the US is very kind of like, you know, held tightly, you know, and yeah, I think people now need to push more than ever to just read, like just read, you know, like reading right now should be the thing that you want to do, like not getting on TikTok or Instagram, or it's like, let me read because I know they don't want me to, right? And like our, you know, ancestors have left us, so, you know, the blueprint. This is Toni Morrison's The Source of Self-Regard, which I've been reading one particular essay in here for 3 weeks because she is so layered. And she's telling us, you know, she's telling us the way forward. Um, so yeah,
Okay.
that's all I'll say.
Yes. Thank you so
I
much.
like to preach.
Okay, so I'm moving far ahead now to talk about the next question for Dr. Okediran will be on the vision. What would a Pan-African literary renaissance tangibly look like if it began today, and what single action can trigger it?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, we're already on course about Pan-African Renaissance. And this, for somebody, I think it was Professor Shoyinka, who said that he believes that perhaps the only thing that is working in the Pan-African movement is the Pan-African Writers Association, because we are using literature to unify Africa. We are creating African unity through literature. We are accommodating writers from different parts of the continents, writing in different languages and in different genres. And this came more to light when we all gathered in Russia about 2 weeks ago for the World Organization of Writers Congress. And I was so happy when I saw my colleagues from Kenya, from Gambia, from South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, all Cameroon and co, all coming together, even in a foreign country, and holding their own. We were able to express ourselves very well. And the other things we are doing already to improve the Pan-African Renaissance is the organization of book fairs, because book fairs are not just for academic or commercial purposes. They are like cultural events where we have activities for all ages. Children have access to fun activities where they can paint, where they can read, where they can dance. We can have some little competition for them, spelling competitions. And again, we also have opportunities for readers, writers, publishers to meet. So these are some of the things we are doing. And then the area of storytelling. I mean, I've heard some of the speakers saying that people concentrate on textbooks, on writing textbooks. And we've confirmed that when you even bring down all these scientific books into storytelling forms, reading becomes easier for people. And Power has undergone so many projects whereby we use storytelling to address issues like environmental pollution, corruption, and so many other things. And young people can understand these concepts, these heavy themes, when you do it in a storytelling form. And one other thing that I also want to encourage and is reading tours. Reading tours. We don't have to travel to far places before we can do some reading tours. While I was the president of the Association of Nigerian Authors some years ago, we usually encourage every state association to invite another writer from another state to come and read for them. And when you come to read, you exchange ideas, you bring different perspectives to people, and you can also learn more. I had this very wonderful experience a few years ago when I was sponsored on a reading tour to the US, about 10 different states in the US. And I never knew that the diaspora had that passion for what was going on the continent. When I was reading to them from my book, Tenants of the House, the reaction was electric. And although sometimes I was held up as if I was the cause of all the problems in Africa from the questions they were asking me, but it was a good experience just to see how writing in the continent and the diaspora go together. My last statement on this will also be about traveling. When we travel is like education. And I've discovered that we know little of Africa countries, even we that live in the continent. But when we travel, I mean, because of my duty as Secretary General of Power, I've had that, I've been fortunate to travel to so many African countries. And when I travel, sometimes I'm astounded at the similarities of cultures. You will eat a certain food in Cameroon, and you'll be shocked that, this was what I was eating in Ibadan when I was in Nigeria. Or you go to Congo, Kinshasa, or go to Egypt, and you see a soup called this green soup, ewedu, I saw it in Egypt, being used to eat rice, something that I used to eat eba or amala in Nigeria. The same soup is used to eat rice in Egypt. The same soup is used to eat fried plantain in Congo. And so traveling is something that we need to encourage. And this will also go a long way in achieving what we want as the Pan-African Renaissance. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the last question will go now to Professor D before we open up to the audience. And I will set some few questions for the audience to randomly pick and answer. And then I'll read something on the text on the chat that I just saw. But the question goes now on sustainability. Dr. D, how can African writers create not just momentarily recognition, but sustainable literary ecosystem for schools, to bookstores, to digital libraries?
Wow. Thank you very much for this question. I think most of what we have heard addressed this in part, and the fact that we are drumming on encouraging reading, encouraging writing. The Pan-African Writers Association at this point is having talks with the dignitaries from every nation. Because in one of the promises or pledges I made upon taking office was that of making sure that our literature is translated into various languages. And the pledge we have to make to the various governments is to make sure that the literary organizations nationally are supported financially. The government should take their hands off censorship, should allow writing to thrive, encourage reading. So, looking at all of this, or even create possibilities for digital archiving of material. And I think with WAFORD and the Pan-African Writers Association, we are going to create a digital platform for publishing or for storing our publications, which could be free of access to the readers. I think we are on the right path when it comes to thinking long term. We are not just thinking momentary. Remember in the opening videos you shared with us, this vision started in 1989, and it has been going on. We are not going to toss or trash what we have inherited from the best and brightest minds. The shoulders on which we stand, they are not going to let us down. And let us not use our shoulders to let those who want to stand on our shoulders down. I would rest it here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor D. So let me open the floor to the audience so we can, because I see there is really a lot of rich stuff coming from here, and I don't want to own this space now alone. So there are some questions that will be lingering. So please try to occupy and take. So how can AI, for example, I'm looking at Professor Bafo, she's big on AI too.
Can I ask you, can I just make a question? Are we going to allow them ask questions, or we are giving them questions?
We will just open and then they can ask
They
too.
can ask, okay.
So yeah, if somebody has anything, so they can always throw it back to us.
Okay, I thought, because maybe I misunderstood that they were going to receive random questions.
Okay, I'll just read them, and then if they have anything, they can put up their hands just the way Mike Joko is putting up his hands, and then he can ask or answer any of them. So there's AI a lot in the whole terrain, and I thought maybe we should, so open access publishing translation tools and help, how they can help democratize African literature. So that's one thing. And then one other question is, what legacy do each of us sitting in here, what do we hope to leave, or what do we hope to reach as a literary institution? Yes, yeah. Or platform. Yeah, that's it. So open. So now there is Mike Joko. I'll just go straight to you. Your hand is up.
Greetings to Joyce Ashuntantang, who was Dr. Gloria was a neighbor in Indian quarters in Limbe. So greetings to you.
Okay.
Yes. I'm here about the money. The money is a big issue, and so it appears for me the sustainability of the effort which power is trying to do rests in part on the money. We want money, right? So how do we get the money? So we need to talk about how we get that money. Now, I am in Canada. I know the Canada Council for the Arts has some grants for us. Do you guys have grants down there in the US and other areas? So that's the one part which I would think we need to talk about here. And then the other issue is whether we can read, because reading for a Westerner is a very different thing for reading from an African. We don't have documents that are written the way Europeans write documents. You know, our art, our stools, our clothing, these are historical documents. So when Babil was talking about some of these aspects, we need to bear in mind where we're coming from traditionally. So we've moved so far out that we need to find our way back home and say, okay, so this is how we read a room within the contents of the accoutrement that's there. Anyway, so is that area that I'd like you guys to, ventilate a little bit more on. Let me just leave it at that for now. Yeah, I'll be back. Yeah.
Thank you, Nimai. This is the one, the money, the very first one. That was very interesting. Thank you.
All
That's
right.
what we all need. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday for very long. I think that was Dr. Blaze. We're actually circling around so many theories, but finally we realized it's money. The whole thing is the finance backing these things, and even coming up from the place of lack and need, underserved communities, we need to really have the money. Thank you, Nimai. Okay, any other question or
I
answer?
think we should address the questions as they come. Or you want to take the questions all before we answer?
Oh, I think he made a statement. Was that a question, Nimai?
Yes, he asked a question at the end.
Oh,
He asked the question.
okay. I thought it was a statement that we need money. So, okay, yes, I open it now for you to answer the panelists.
All right. I will say something about the money, and the Secretary General will add to it. Because originally, when power was created, it is sanctioned. It is a diplomatic organization sanctioned by the African Union, created back then by OAU. And every African nation took a pledge to finance the upkeep of this association. It is true that it has not. Many countries have defaulted. And that is why I talked of the pledge that we are back, the Secretary General and myself, to making sure that we address the African Union Commission with all the heads of states present, not only to repledge on what they had promised, but to make sure they catch up on what they have not paid until now. That's for the money aspect of it. Now, talking about the cultural aspect, I very much appreciate what you have said. In our writings, I could take, for instance, my own writings. I don't write living outside aspects of my culture. The way I would dress my characters, the way I would describe my environments, the way I would talk about the places that I'm describing, if it is a shrine that requires this or that kind of respect, they are all inside the literature. That is why I talked of our oral tradition, which is a tradition that cuts across disciplines. That we don't leave anything outside. So if we create our modern literature following that kind of literature, following that oral tradition, we don't leave our stories out. So I think I've addressed those two, but I'll leave room for the Secretary General, because he would certainly have more to say about the money aspect of our association.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Indy. Yes, you are right, because I'm here at the middle of it all. I know where it's really hot. And we have, just like you said, we were expecting African countries to follow the directive from the African Union to be contributing annual subscription to maintain power. But as of today, I don't think, I think only about 3 countries have done that so far. And even then, they're about 2 years behind. So we are, in addition to trying to talk to the African Union, we are also collaborating with other agencies like my brother Michael Ijoko said, if we have any agency that is ready to support African literature, we can sign an MOU with that agency and see where we can work together for mutual benefit of those two organizations. We have done that with a few international organizations like WIPO, or that is the World Intellectual Property Organization in Geneva. We have done that with the Afrexim Bank. They would sometimes ask us to nominate one or two of our members to give lectures or to give organize workshops, and in return, a little stipend is given, is paid. Even though these are not adequate, these are some of the areas we are also looking at. So we are ready to collaborate. We are looking forward to. We even have a big pool of resource persons, academicians, scholars, storytellers, writers, and all kind of creatives who can be, for a fee, help to put things together. And don't let me forget the position of biographies. We are aware that we have so many important personalities, Africans in diaspora all over the world, who want to put their experiences and stories into book form, but because they don't have the time and maybe the talent to do so, we have the pool of personnel that can do that for them. So these are some of the areas we are looking at to raise some funds. Thank you.
Yeah, because the movie industry has been exploiting us for a long time, you know. So yeah, so thanks very much. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, you're right. Thank you.
And I'll just add my voice to it again, just to encourage membership subscription into your, regional chapters or national chapters. Don't just think that the things just happen. We don't have a spring where the money is just coming. Do your regular subscription, and then from there we can all pool our resources together for a stronger Pan-African literary movement. Let's not sit on a platform where we have 100 members sharing WhatsApp messages, and then only 15 or 20 are contributing to run the association. It is not sustainable, because we are talking about sustainability. Imagine that WAFORD were to organize a conference in the US on African literature. So the 100 members can dip their hands in their pockets and organize that conference. It is challenging. So let us think, we are in it together. When we're thinking sustainability, let us also think all hands on deck. All hands on deck. All ideas are welcome. Let us receive the ideas that will move the Pan-African writing forward rather than backward. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I would love to add something to that, but my bent is different. One of the things when it comes to money is the idea of self-publishing. A lot of writers, in order to have their work out there, have to self-publish. And but now we are beginning to have publishers like those who are connected to ABC, African Book Collective, that you don't have to pay money to publish. It's not pay for publishing, but that means that the quality of your work has to be at a certain level. So it is true that, so you don't have, so because in most African countries, in order to publish, you must find money to publish. And that is also stopping some people. If you can raise equivalent of $2,000 to $3,000, $4,000, you can't publish. So it's good to know that there are publishing houses that you don't have to pay to publish. Yes, the next thing is that you will have to market, but at least your work, if you publish, let's say with Langa, with Spears, who else do I know in African Book Collective, which is a collective of a number of publishers in Africa. You have your works placed in libraries all over the world, so at least your works are there for posterity. You don't have to sell door to door. So it's good to know that. And Dr. Ango, I just wanted to say this because I don't want to forget or we get derailed. In all our conversations, we've talked about accessibility of writing, but there's something that I want to bring. While we want people to write, while we say that once you write, you are a writer, we should also realize that there must be a good balance between writing, accessibility to writing, and writing something that is good.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a balance, because this is what happens. It's like a lot of professions are opening up, they're opening up. While we want that access, the challenge is that then people get in and they start touting titles that cannot be backed. So these days, somebody was like, oh, I need you to write a blurb I want to write a blurb for my book. And I have to tell them that I am a professor of literature. My blurb is my job. So I just can't, maybe somebody who is not a professor can just write and say, yeah, this is a good work, this is a good job, and it's fine. I can't do that because my name is on the line. My profession is on the line.
Thank you.
Yes.
So well spoken.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Joy. Yes. Now,
can I just piggyback a little bit on Dr. Joyce? Thank you. You spoke so well. But remember, that is why you had the editorial board in WAFORD Press. So the works that will come through certainly would have some degree of gatekeeping. We are not just going to publish in WAFORD Press anything that is published. What we are doing is that we are encouraging writers who, when they start, they are first of all intimidated, they are timid, they are taking their baby steps. So we encourage them by saying, if you are a writer, if you write, you are a writer. But it doesn't mean because you are a writer, everything you write gets published. Some of us, even I trust you, Dr. Joyce, you have works that you have written and submitted to some press, and they said, go and review, revise, redo this, redo that. We all know that. But we are at this point trying to encourage those who are taking baby steps to be sure that their voices can also be heard if we give them the necessary guidelines or guardrails, and they stick within those guardrails. Thank you.
Yay, thank you so much. We're really like 15 minutes over time, but I'm enjoying it. I think we're all enjoying it. If there are no more questions, then we can actually close up. Any more questions?
If I could just say something really quickly, I agree that writing should be impactful, it should be good. But we also have to acknowledge the reality that there are many, many outlets where people can put their information out there. So I think that, there's pros and cons to that. When earlier in my journalism career, where the industry was being like laying off journalists due to the change in the business model, you saw a lot of bloggers, just taking over. And I was still going to the journalism conferences, and journalists were angry, they're not journalists, they're not truth tellers, but guess what? They were still out there. And then a few years later, you see the journalists becoming bloggers. So I would just caution that, there's many outlets.
Balance. It's balance.
Of course, with
everything. Yes, thank you. Well, if there are no more questions, I should thank you and swiftly close it up so we can continue with the Saturday in style. Thank you so much for attending. And we have a follow-up panel in December. The questions that we left open, we're going to continue, and there are quite a bit more. We need more time to philosophize on literary work and enjoy this whole platform. So I really honor you for coming. I thank you so much. Yes, so in the crowd, I would just say there's Berry K posting very nicely. Thank you so much for your contribution. There is Kennedy, Hilary, Owama, Paul, Ngwako, Lizzie. Lizzie Ben has been really posting nicely. Professor Edouard Mafo, my AI queen. And Mirabelle, there is Andine Fomso on the line there. That's my sister. Kabura Zakama, Chinere Obi Obasi, and Agwagwa. There is Babila. I'm thinking this is our member. This is Dr. Babila Tachu. I'm suspecting, but maybe he's not the one. So because I saw in his writing style.
It's not Babila Fomuso, no?
No, he looks like Babila Tachu. Yeah. Or maybe Babila Fomuso, I don't know. There is Dr. Blaze. And thank you so much for attending. Thank you. And see you in our next panel. I already thank the panelists for doing this. Honorable Dr. Wale, Professor Joyce, thank you for my gas money. Thank you, Ruby.
You gotta share. I'm coming.
Thank you, Ruby. Thank you,
Right.
Rita.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right.
Professor Bill, we have to talk.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.